Hey everybody, this is another update. Just doing some basic maintenance on my wife's PT Cruiser. This is the daily driver for work. It's got 130,000 miles on it, and as long as we can keep it going, continue to use it. So today what we're going to be doing is we're going to be doing new brake pads, new rotors, as well as new lower control arm bushings. Step one is going to be simply to remove the caliper. The way that you do that is you've got a 12mm bolt right here, and then another 12mm bolt right here. You take both of those out, the center section will remove, and you're going to be able to hang this up from somewhere up here because it's still going to be attached by this line. So you cannot just let it dangle by this line. You need to raise it up and get it up out of the way, so that way it doesn't just pull on that line the entire time. Once you've done that, you then will have this cage, this caliper cage, still attached to the rotor. You take this off with two bolts. They're 18mm. There's one on the top, one on the bottom. That removes the cage basically from around the rotor, and then your rotor should be able to pull off. Now, a lot of times, especially with daily driver vehicles, and especially this one where it's been on here for a little while, these rotors get stuck. So what I like to do first, get some PB Blaster, spray the PB Blaster or any penetrating oil into the holes here, maybe a little bit behind. Tap this lightly with a hammer, or I'd suggest a big rubber mallet, and try and loosen this up. If you still can't get the rotor off, you're going to have to go with plan B, which is to use the bolt method, which I can show you over here on this side. So on this side, as you can tell, we've already got the rotor off. These are the two holes that the 18mm bolts go through. What you do is you take a bolt that slides freely through this hole, put a nut on the end of it with a couple of washers, tighten that down, and then put your wrench on this and your ratchet on the actual bolt head, and keep turning that. And what that'll do is it'll push this bolt into the back side of that rotor and sort of pry it off. And then all of a sudden you'll hear a popping noise. That popping noise is good. That's just it releasing from the hub. So it'll pop, it'll come off, and then you'll be able to remove the rotor. Once that's done, if you're just doing brakes, simply go ahead and put on your new rotor. Make sure you use brake cleaner on it, because they do have a oily coating on them to protect them in shipping. So go ahead and clean it with brake cleaner, put the new one on, repeat the entire process backwards, and then your brakes are done. And we'll go ahead and show you that a little bit later as well. But for me, I also needed to replace the lower control arm bushings. Now, in order to do that, I highly suggest taking out the entire lower control arm. Those bushings are press fit in, which means that you're going to need to rent probably a tool from either AutoZone or your local parts store to be able to press those bushings out. And if we didn't have that out and I was trying to use that tool up underneath there, it would have never worked. So, first thing that you need to do is go ahead and remove your sway bar. Sway bar is this piece right down here. It'll be attached up underneath. And on the top of the sway bar, you're going to have this. It's not really a nut. It's kind of this strange, I don't know how many points that is. It's pretty much round though. So this sits on the top up here. So you need somebody, or if you're really talented, you might be able to do it yourself. We used locking pliers. Go ahead, or you could use vice grips. Grip onto this piece, so that way it won't spin, and then go ahead and unbolt from this bottom side here to remove that sway bar out. You need to remove it from both sides in order to be able to move it down like that. Once that's free, you're going to go ahead and remove this bolt right here, which is going up into the vehicle. That bolt, it's a pretty long bolt. It goes up into the actual bottom of the car, and there's a captured nut on the top, so you go ahead and remove that out of the bottom. On the other side, you're going to have a little bit different story. You're going to have this bolt right here. As you can see, I sort of got it halfway in there. That bolt goes that way into the lower control arm, so you're going to go ahead and remove that one. And then finally, there is a ball joint. So this ball joint, as you can see, has a notch in it. That notch goes up into this knuckle right here, and then a bolt goes through this. So there's a bolt that goes through this that intersects that notch when this is up inside of it. So you're going to need to remove that bolt all the way, so then that way you can hammer this out. So once you've removed that bolt, go ahead and hammer that out. You'll be able to take the entire assembly out. Alright, so we're now working on the driver's side. As you can see, I don't have the jack actually holding up the brake caliper or the hub assembly. So it turns out you can actually get that out without having to jack that thing up. The spring and everything's retained, so it won't bottom out or fall out or anything like that. So we've got our control arm bushing and everything. So this is the lower control arm. This right here is the bushing that we're replacing. I've put the new one in. As you can see, in order to get this bushing in, what you do, go ahead and go to AutoZone, rent you a control arm bushing kit or whatever. It's like $100 to rent it. And so what you do is you take the largest ring that's in there, put it underneath, support your control arm on like a case or something so everything's nice and flat. Put it just like that. There's another ring in there that fits perfectly over the top of this, just like that. And then you take these pucks like so, and then you get a BFG and just basically hit it on the top just like that. You're going to drive that bushing down into the control arm. Unfortunately, because you need to use two spacers, because of the way this is designed, you can't use the actual clamp that comes with. So we just use this hammer method, and you're going to need to hammer on this thing. I mean, it needs to be really hard. So what I suggest is go ahead, take your bushing overnight, go ahead and throw it in the freezer. That'll cause it to contract. And then when you get the other bushing out, go ahead and heat it up a little bit. I heated mine up a little bit with a blowtorch to give me a little bit extra room. So make the control arm kind of hot, make the bushing kind of cold, and it should be able to slide back together. And then you just give it a whack like that, and your control arm should be seated like that. So now we're going to go ahead and put it back onto the vehicle.